love the songs. They're so beautiful. I knew from karaoke, I was like, this girl needs to release
Ooh,
music. And
ooh,
then it was
ooh.
like, because like you and Jana, you guys are like on it when we go out. Like usually like when people do karaoke, like they don't sound the way you guys do when you do it. So I love it. It's always such a pleasure to like hear you sing. I want to tell me about this background. That's so
So
beautiful.
this is the cover. This is the EP cover. So my friend, her name is Stephanie Lestrange. She actually did the cover and the illustration. And if you, that's me right there.
So cute. Is that the Washington Square Park Arch?
Yeah. So and it has a little in transit, the post, signpost there, and then there's just different monuments or landmarks that have impacted or just that I remember throughout my life. So there's you can kind of name like you got the Washington Square Park one. There's the Empire State Building. This is the Washington Monument right here. It's a little fuzzy, so I feel like either you might get it, you might not. This is not a building, but it is a pineapple. And that actually represents there's a pineapple in Baltimore, Maryland, which is where I was born. Um it's on top of this building when you enter the city. And as a child, we were always like, look for the pineapple, look for the pineapple. And if you ask anyone from Baltimore, they're like, oh, yeah, the pineapple. Like they'll know what you're talking about. So that's just kind of there as like a little like Easter egg, kind of. Yeah.
It's so cute. And I love that it combines so much of what you've done in your life and things that are important to you, because that's really the theme of this EP, right? It's just a
Yeah.
collection of so many things that, so many experiences that you've been through throughout your life, starting when you were very young, 4 years old, you said. So to start us off, tell me a little bit about how those experiences have shaped you as an artist and have gone into the creation of In Transit.
Oh gosh. Okay. So I think it's funny. The concept for In Transit was something that I knew I wanted to do about 5 years ago. I didn't know what the songs were going to be at that time, but I knew that just me going through my life and kind of, you read this, but my parents divorced when I was really little, and it was very amicable. Like, I don't want to say anything bad about that at all, but it's just you kind of have a different experience, especially when your parents divorce when you're so young. You become accustomed to not, you be like being moving is like your normal. And I've had that conversation with some of my friends whose parents got divorced when they were older, like teenagers or even college or like adults. It's a very different experience and viewpoint. So because of that, I always was on the move. I always loved being on planes. I loved traveling. I loved being on trains. Like I loved like just taking road trips. It was something that I I felt comfortable being not stagnant, if that makes sense. So that was kind of where the concept came about. And then as I reached early adulthood, so I would say like around my early like 20, I would say 20 actually. No Hate, I think is the youngest song on this on the EP, and that was written when I was 20 exactly. Up to now is like a collection of songs going through different phases of your life, because your early 20s is such a transformative period. You really kind of start knowing who you are as a person, and what things you want to do. But also, I was a late bloomer when it came to relationships and dating and things like that. So that was really where I got my first actual serious experiences. Dating, being rejected, being well, I was rejected a lot in as a child, or not child, but like as a teenager. Ew. I was so it's things like that where I this was my first serious experience dating. And it's funny because the two things, like growing up and kind of being moving and dating and relationships, they don't really make there's not really you don't really think of there being a lot of overlap in those two things. But I mean, as you grow as a person and your experiences that you had when you were younger, they affect everything. So I've always been such a hopeless romantic. And I think that's kind of where the two things tie together is I've always just wanted someone to call my person. And you hear that in the EP. You kind of go through the songs and they speak to different things. So I think that answered your question.
It did. And I think we can kind of see, I feel like some songs definitely have that younger feel to them. And then as we go through, you can kind of see a little bit more of you gathering these experiences and gaining them, which I think is so beautiful. Something that I love is you've shared so much of your journey of the creation of In Transit on social media, kind of a bit in real time, like as it's been happening. And you made an account to do so, which I love. I love keeping up with that. So what was the inspiration behind sharing this part of your life and creative process with social media? And what do you hope it inspires in people who see it?
So I think it really started as me wanting to just document this whole process. The single from it, No Hate, I put out, oh gosh, in 2021, so 2 years ago now. And I didn't really do a lot for it. I just kind of like put it out. I did do a lyric video, but there wasn't a lot of me documenting the process of it. And for this one, because it's the biggest personal project I've had to this date. So I really wanted to make sure that it was something that I could look back on. And also, I think just me being a multifaceted artist, there's a lot on like my personal socials and stuff that don't necessarily have to do directly with the EP. So I wanted to make sure that there was some separation between the two. Because I mean, as you know, but they might not know, I'm also an actress, I'm a writer, and then obviously a singer. So there's different, and I do some photography, modeling, some of that stuff. But there's obviously a lot that goes into my main account. So I wanted to make sure that this was special to me at least. That there was some place where I could call home for it and it could kind of live indefinitely, or I could put it on private if I get madly embarrassed by this when I'm in like 35 or something, but something that I could share. And when someone is like, oh, like, what did you do for this EP? Like, what are some fun things that came out of it? I literally can just direct them to those social pages.
I always think of social media as like a scrapbook, and I feel like the EP also, in some sense of way, feels like a scrapbook of your life, which I really like. Like you've described it as love letters and all that. It's so beautiful. Now, as Taylor Swift would put it, you're in your lover era, definitely less of an era and more of a lifestyle, which is absolutely how it should be. Now, I know what the song John is about, but I'd love for you to share a little bit about that part of your life and what went into creating that song.
Oh my God, am I blushing? You're so cute.
Yes.
No, yeah, I definitely am in my lover era, hopefully indefinitely. That's what I see at least. But yeah, John is about my current boyfriend who I've been dating for over a year and a half. Like in October, it'll be 2 years, so a little ways to go. But the origin of that story honestly it's not that romantic, like the origin of it. Basically we were just hanging out one night, and our relationship was long distance, right? So we would hang out, he would visit, whatever. And then he found my old art book where I had just songs, drawings, lyrics, just like random thoughts. He didn't find it, he just saw it, and I was like, you want to see it? And inside of it was a bunch of songs, but they were typically about bad relationships or breakups or things that never happened, which like you can find in the EP. But there weren't any love songs. And he was like, oh, you've written songs about these people, but you've never written a song about me? Like very tongue in cheek. He's very tongue in cheek, very, very much joking. And I picked up my guitar, which was right next to my bed, and I was like, do you want a song? I'll write one for you right now. And he was like, okay. So I started just strumming on the guitar. And I think I wrote the first two lines, the first two sentences of it that night. And then I think he was leaving the next morning. So I put it away and I was like, I'll get back to this later. He left. Next day, I picked it up again and I just sat down and wrote it all in 20 minutes. So that was the origin story of it. Again, it wasn't super romantic. It wasn't a super romantic start, but it was actually nice to be able to write it alone because I could kind of just reflect and like think about him and what he means to me and just what that relationship as a whole meant to me. And you can really tell that in the song. And it's funny because it's named John, very very Taylor Swift. Again, it's named him, but he's never there's no names in the actual song, which is I did very much on purpose because I wanted it to be something that could be universally related to. There's a lot of things in the song that are very specific that he has done or that we have done in the relationship, but I wouldn't say they're particularly uh that they're particularly like one in a million. Like other people have had these experiences, and I wanted the song and lyrics to be able to be shared with other people who are in their lover era, as you put it.
What do you mean that's not romantic? That's so romantic. Writing your first like real like love song in that terms with someone right with the person there. That is so romantic.
Thank you. Well, I think it's because it was like all the other songs were like about other guys, so it's not so that wasn't the most romantic, but you're
Forget
right.
about that part.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
all we need. Now you mentioned that these songs act as love letters to your former self in a sense. If you could go back in time and talk to young Tessa, what do you think you'd say?
Oh my gosh. Um, I would say stop being so emo, but like not emo in the terms of like early 2000s emo, but in terms of just being like super emotional. But like that's just kind of who I am as a person. And it's not as much just like rejecting that. It's just like figuring out how to grow with that and navigate. So what would an actual thing I would be say? Oh, I guess just like men ain't shit. Like that would be that would be it. And I think if he wants to, he will, and all of that. Like, and also like don't ever stop pursuing your passions. Those would be the three things in relation to the CP.
Absolutely. I love that. Now you talked about this a little while ago, but I definitely want to explore more about it because I love the way you speak about it in these terms. You explained that as you grow, some part of you will always be in transit, and I love that. Now, from a theoretical standpoint of just the way that you've established this for yourself, what does being in transit really mean to you, and how do you think it manifests itself in your art?
Oh my gosh, that's a good question. I think being in transit, for me at least, it just means never stop chasing the things that you want or the things you want to achieve. For this EP, you can tell like the songs are very much about wanting that person and like finding what I deserve. And I think that's very universal for all men, women, not others, etc. Is just being able to find someone who you don't feel like you're settling for, who someone who you deserve, but also who deserves you too. So I think that's one thing, but I think more in terms of just chasing what you want and what you deserve in life is just experiencing life to the fullest, not letting no's get in the way. And I think not becoming stagnant with where you are. I know I've heard from people as you get older and as you grow, um, you can kind of just become complacent with like where you are in life. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that for what other people want is like whatever that is. But I think there are ways to make the normal extraordinary every single day. And I want to constantly be chasing those little extraordinary moments.
I love that so much. I always say I never want to be stagnant. That's like my
Exactly.
goal is to just always be chasing something, always be creating something. And there's so many undertones of that in the music. Now hearing that now, I'm like, oh, that makes sense. I love it.
Sydney, I cannot imagine you stagnant.
I can't imagine you stagnant either. How we are. It's how we should be. Now you've always loved New York, which is a fact. I love that you. Your first visit, you wouldn't stay put in your stroller, you were getting out. How would you say now you live here, obviously? How has living here impacted your art?
Oh my gosh, it's just been wonderful. I think the way it's impacted my art mostly, which is good and bad, is you're surrounded by people who are always creating their art, who are always doing their best, who are always on their A game. And I think again, that pushes me to not stay stagnant, to always want to improve, to hone my skills, to always be leveling up and doing it in a way that is mentally healthy. That's something to work on. But I think just being surrounded by so many different artists and art forms every single day, like you literally walk outside or walk into Washington Square Park and you see people painting, making music. I live relatively close to the Met, and there's this guy who who does poems, or there's a saxophone player that's always there. And I think there are different art forms that come and go, but there's also in artists, in individual artists, but there's also an art form of the city. And I think that affects everyone who lives here, is just knowing there is a nuanceness and romantic essence that is over the city. And I think that definitely impacts my art, and also the hustle and bustle of it. Like there's never anything boring. Like you can always, if I get bored being uptown, I'll just go downtown or to another bar. And I think just the diversity of cultures and neighborhoods and people, and just New York City, like being able to be here for, I always say, like, I'm if I leave at all, which won't be permanently, it'll maybe be for like a year or something, it'll be after I've been here for at least a decade. Because it's even just the time that I've been here, I've been able to see the city change and grow in many different ways. So yeah, I think that's what I would say.
I love it. You speak so beautifully about it. And you
Thank
can see how much it's impacted you, and that's so beautiful. Something that I was very surprised to find out about you is you were a lead singer in a punk rock band called Vice.
you.
That is quite the genre jump till now.
I say even though even though I like let everyone know. Yeah, I did do that when I was 16. And that was back in Maryland. I was in high school. We sang some Paramore, we sang some Fall Out Boy. Oh my gosh, yeah, it was really fun. Honestly, my voice didn't fit the genre at all. Um, we did it because my friends were in the band, and my friend, like, she was like, you're a really good singer, like try to do this. And then we did it, and it was like, we had two shows, an opener and a closer. But we practiced so much, Sydney. We practiced like every single weekend for only having two shows. We parted ways due to creative differences.
Happens to the best of us. You should have like sold tickets to the rehearsals or something.
I know. That was a fun
Like your
time, yeah.
big moment. Like you had to have all that practice for the two shows. Very huge moment. So who would you say that your musical inspirations are, both in general and for the CP specifically?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I was thinking about this, and they say like, oh, sometimes people are like, oh yeah, say who is like kind of closest to your genre. Like if you like this music, you'll like me. And then some people are like, no, like you want to be individual, this or that. But I've put it in the best way I can put it, is I would say my music if if it was Taylor Swift and Olivia Rodrigo's middle sister that everyone forgot about.
I love it.
But more so Taylor Swift. I do love Olivia Rodrigo, but that makes sense because she was very much impacted by Taylor Swift as well. Taylor is like definitely an all-time fan. I've been going to her concerts since I was 12 years old. I love her so much. But yeah, I also would say Halsey is a really big inspiration. So Detour, you can kind of tell there's a little bit more edge, a little bit more angst on that one. Definitely Halsey. I love Kalani. I think Kalani is just kind of, her vibe is very much influences like just the way I kind of think about songs, and think about songwriting. And then of course like Queen Bee, Beyonce, she's great. But yeah, and then I would say my all-time favorite band though is Fleetwood Mac. So Landslide is my favorite song ever. So there's a good like kind of mix of definitely like pop, old school rock, a little bit of R&B in there. Um, but yeah, those are kind of the top ones that I like to think of.
I love
Very,
it.
very, very, very reaching on all those, I'm
I
aware.
love it though, but I could definitely see like the little hints of inspiration there, which is so beautiful. Now you touched on this a little bit before. That seems to be my catchphrase in this interview. We talk a lot.
No, you're good.
But you touched on this a little bit before, about just how you have this, you made sure to, a lot of the songs contain personal anecdotes or symbols of experiences
Mhm.
you had in your own life, but they're also relatable to a wider audience. So how do you balance capturing those personal experiences and emotions in your music while also creating something that can be relatable?
Wow. I don't think this is gonna sound kind of funny, but it's not, the relatability isn't something that I dwell on. I kind of put whatever I'm feeling in my heart and soul and whatever comes to my mind lyrically on paper. And then I'll look through the lyrics and I'll say, like, do these make sense? Do these sentences make sense to the story? Do they make sense in terms of singing it, this or that? But then typically, what I'll do is I'll play the songs for my best friend. And then she'll kind of give me feedback on them. She's brutally honest. Like, there's songs that I've played for her and she's like, I absolutely hated that. Don't play that for anyone else. Like, I never want to hear it again. So she's very, very honest. And like, it's not as much in sense of being relatable, but if she actually likes the song, I'm like, okay, so like people will get this, like people will understand this. But yeah, that's kind of my litmus test. I tend not to make anything too specific, like on July 5th, 2011, we went to the mall and got an orange Julius, and then you hit on this other girl. Like, it's never that specific. I think in general, my songwriting is very broad strokes, and then when it's getting too vague, I kind of just pepper in like a little detail or something like that to make it like, individualistic to me.
That's so beautiful. The thing about Orange Julius was really funny.
I haven't
So
done like 10 years. It's been a while.
really stirring up old emotions
I
today.
know, I know.
What I do.
Really kind of a nostalgic EP, I would say. Like, it definitely
Very
has
much
the
so.
eras. Yeah.
Very much so. I love it. So I know this is a bit of a loaded question, but how would you specifically define your artistic identity and how does it manifest in these songs specifically?
Okay. Um, my artistic identity, I think anything I do, and this is a little cliche, anything you do I'm very much a storyteller. So I want people to be able to again, like, relate to my music. But again, I'm also very selfish with my art, if that makes sense. So I put out like the emotions that I'm feeling or have at that time. And again, with this EP, I kind of had an idea of what I wanted to do with it. And then as I wrote songs, I figured out what fit into this project, So I think my artistic identity is definitely like pop girl next door with like a bit of quirk and a bit of edge in some aspects. I think I don't know. I don't like to, I feel like you're right. It is a loaded question because I don't really like to try too hard in saying what I am. I think I'm a silly goose, Sydney.
Too.
I think that's the best. Honestly, though, I think that's the best way to describe this is I try not to take I try not to take things too seriously or too personally in whatever I'm doing, but always remain passionate about the projects and songs and music and whatever I'm doing in life. So I think it would be passionate, silly goose, to be honest.
That is amazing. That's very you too. I feel very
Right? Yeah.
I love it. That is a cliche question, but do you have a favorite song on the EP or do you have a favorite lyric?
Oh,
Which one though? Because I know
How'd I get the honor to call you mine is the favorite lyric.
I love
Um,
it.
and silly note about that lyric is the word honor. Again, I was talking to my best friend about this. She was like, Tessa, that word's not relatable. Like, if you're gonna put this out, then you like need to take that word out. So I changed it out a little. Again, like I do take like that consideration. So I changed it out a little bit, and I tried some other words, but they just like they didn't hit the same for me. So I ended up leaving the lyric in there because I was like, this is what is authentic to me. And I think if I put a different word there, then it wouldn't hit the same in the song. Even though it would maybe be more relatable to people, it wouldn't be something that I would be able to authentically sing.
I love honor. I think it flows so well. It's so
Thank
beautiful.
you. Thank you. I like it too.
Because I think it's also like almost like a vulnerable lyric of like how much you as a person have impacted me. I think that's so pretty.
Mhm. Yeah.
So, as a young female artist, how do you hope your music resonates with listeners who may be going through similar experiences in their own relationships?
So I definitely think I wrote this EP for the girls, um, for the girls and gays, if they'll have
I was
me.
gonna say, and the gays.
Yeah, and if they'll have me, you know. But it definitely is a very like coming of age young woman EP. And I hope that I really when writing this, and I wanted to make sure originally we were gonna do 3 songs, but I wanted to add one more song because I wanted to make sure that there was a song on the EP that anyone who is in any stage of a relationship could relate to. So like Detour, for example, is the one where it's like you just don't feel like you're good enough. And that's sad as it is, like that's a very universal feeling for a lot of women, unfortunately, or people, you know. But I wanted that was on there. And then obvious F Boy is on there, which is fun. It's the most fun song, I'll say.
Very
Um,
Ariana Grande, I feel.
yeah, it's a great one to just like scream, you know, when you're angry. About just like, you know, I mean, I feel like the title is pretty self-explanatory on that one. And then No Hate, of course, that's out. It's just a feel-good song. It's like, all right, like I've gotten over this, like I'm moving on, like I'm kind of like I'm rising up. I'm getting there. Like I'm like that wasn't okay, but I don't have any hate anymore. So and just moving on and moving forward with that. And then of course, like John, that's like the I like to refer to it as my fairy tale ending in the sense of the EP. So hopefully I was hoping that all those songs together would kind of hit the different buckets in terms of just like dating. And obviously there's so many more nuances to being in relationships and being in flirtationships, situationships. Dating in New York City specifically is not. I don't recommend it for the week. I shipped my boy in from Alabama, so
Is that what I have to do?
unfortunately, Sydney, I hate to break it to you, but yeah, so I hope that I hope that it does resonate. And also with the EP, the order of the songs, it's kind of, at least for me, it was chronological to the way I dealt with like getting over someone and like just starting out and dating and getting rejected. And it was kind of a chronological order. I understand that that's not the case for everyone. Obviously, there's ups and downs and like flips and I don't know. There's so many things, so many nuances. But yeah, that was kind of my thought process with that.
So the EP explores obviously the themes of two very important themes, which is relationships and also that personal growth aspect. What was it about these two main themes and how they've manifested in your life that made you really want to write about them and sing about them?
So I think again, I'm a hopeless romantic, so the relationship part of it just was very natural. I think I've been writing like songs about boys since I was like crushing on someone in like middle school, you know, like it was very familiar to me. So there was that. And in terms of personal growth, I think, and this is gonna sound kind of funny, but I think actually no, it's not funny. It's pretty it's a pretty normal thing to deal with. But you know, as you grow as a person, and you learn about yourself as a person, there's also understanding the individualistic relationship with yourself. So if you go through the EP, there's Detour, and then there's F Boy, and then there's No Hate. And it was between No Hate, braiding between No Hate and John. And I think if you listen to the songs back to back, you might be able to feel this as well. That I was able to go through a lot of personal growth and understand just kind of my value and my worth when it comes to dating. And not even when it comes to dating, just having more autonomy as being like, okay, I'm a young woman. I have thoughts, I have feelings, I have things that I want to say. And just not being as timid about that. And then once I was able to kind of understand that a little bit better in myself, it's funny, I just ended up dating a lot more people and I had a lot more confidence. And then through that, John and I always talk about this. It really was right place, right time, timing. Because if I had met him 6 months earlier, if he had met me 6 months earlier, I don't think we would have had that emotional growth and emotional maturity in order to be able to like come together. as two people who are interested in each other, like responsibly, I guess. So I feel like a lot of that is intertwined. A lot of it is separate. Like, you know, you want to have your own personal growth and things of that nature, but just in terms of the in terms of the world of this EP, those are how those two things came together.
I love your guys' story and just your dynamic. You're so well made for each other. Like the way you interact is so beautiful. Very glad to have witnessed it. You guys are the best wedding buddies ever.
Oh my gosh, yeah, so much fun. You and your mom as well.
We need someone else we know to get married.
Girl, we'll see.
Just saying. So what emotions or messages do you want your listeners to take away from while listening to In Transit?
You will always have the fairy tale ending that you deserve. It's just about putting yourself in places and opportunities that allow you to do so. So that's the thing is like when I say fairy tale ending, mine, I wanted a person romantically who I could live my life with and who was there for me. But not everyone wants that. Some people want to be very independent and have that. Some people don't necessarily want to be in like serious. It's weird. I didn't want to be in a serious relationship. It just kind of like it's not something I ever thought about. I just wanted like someone. I always say this. I just had so like during the time, the era of Detour and F Boy and No Hate, I had so much love to give, but no one to give it to. So when I met John, that's how that happened. But some people don't want that. They just kind of want someone a little bit more fun and playful or whatever. It's just you'll find the fairy tale ending that you want, whether that's you being single, whether that's being with the person that you are meant to find. Any of the above, and regardless of the situations, like you will have the fairy tale ending that you deserve and you want, as long as you make the most of your situations. And I say that because even before John, I think, and I like to say this, even if I didn't have him in my life, I would still try to live my life best I could independently and without him and things, and have my own fairy tale ending in the sense of like making the CP and like having these opportunities and going for my dreams and goals. So I think that's just something that that people think of. And also in the terms of more the like young girl angst thing, where again it's just like if he wants to he will, and you deserve and if you feel like you deserve better than you do. I think those are the that encompasses most of it.
Yes, girl, I love that so, so, so much. Now, last but surely not least, do you have any advice for any, young female artists just like you who really want to break into this and want to put out their own music? What advice do you have for them?
Oh my gosh. I do want to say I'm a novice myself, so everything I say with a grain of salt. Um, I think a lot of it is about, and I mean, this is very generic advice, but it's very true. A lot of it is about the people that you know, in terms of being able to collaborate with. So a lot of it is about collaborating with the people that you know. So my producers, both of them, J. Chris Griffith and Todd Tran, I found them through friends that I had who were in the music industry. One of my friends is like just super helpful with giving me advice and things, and he's been in the game a little bit longer. So um just kind of putting yourself in spaces where you can have the opportunity to be able to, and I don't like to say network, but be able to connect with people on an authentic level, like people who you actually like don't work with a producer who you can't stand as a person. Like obviously. And I think that's something to say. And that's a lot easier said than done, honestly, being a woman in this industry. I've just from stories I've heard from people, other women in this industry who are a bit more far along than me and just hearing their stories. But I try to keep that in my head and just being as true to yourself as you can be. This is generic advice, but I've definitely always take this, read all your contracts, always read all your contracts thoroughly, take the time to do it. If you don't understand something, like ask someone, because I don't know, it's just things can get dicey. And check in with your friends.
Absolutely.
Oh.
Tessa, thank you so much for joining me today. This EP is so good. I'm amazed. I'm so excited for everyone to listen to it. May 19th, right? We got what, 4
May
days?
19th?
Yay!
If you're in New York, there will be a billboard in Times Square.
Oh my gosh. I'm so excited. I didn't know that. Oh my gosh.
I know, surprise, surprise. Just for that day. But yeah,
But still, oh my God, congratulations. That's amazing.
thank you.
Congratulations on everything, girl. So
Oh,
proud of you. Oh
thank you so much, Sydney.
my
Thank you,
gosh, of
Nocturnal.
course.